Speaker.
Catherine Delahunty.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker, kia ora koutou katoa. He mihi nui ki te uri o Ngāti Hineuru. Ngāti Hineuru katoa. Kuia, kaumātua, whaia, mātua, rangatahi, tamariki, me pepe. He mihi mahana ki te whare paramata. It is our privilege to have you here in this whare as part of your hikoi towards tino rangatiratanga. The Green Party would like to proudly support your settlement and acknowledge your efforts, and to recognise that in this House, in the record today, the invisibilisation of your iwi is laid to rest. It is laid down, and the nation will hear your name, as it should. Just like to acknowledge in reading the process of getting to this point, it's easy to read the words, but then you see what does it take when a people has been scattered, their whenua stolen, their history attacked. What does it take to bring them back together to create this process? And I think of all the journeys that you made to do that, and all the journeys you couldn't afford the fund to make. So you go to the big cities and gather up the people. You put out the call to the people, but there are places that you cannot go. And in this process of drawing people back in, just what a huge effort it is to do that, to get people together, to address their rights, their history and their future. And that itself is an enormous challenge and task for those who have been scattered to ngā haui whā. So I just want to acknowledge you for all of that. I also want to acknowledge that your account of this process is a testimony to the complexity when so much has been taken, not lost, but stolen. You didn't lose it. You weren't on the way to the shop one day and you dropped out of your pocket your whenua and your culture. You didn't. It wasn't that you lost it. It was taken, and it was taken, as others have said, through violence. And that's why it is appropriate for tears to be shed in this whare and throughout the motu, before we can move to the rebuilding of the po that you have identified. Tears should be shed. And I would argue that my culture, Pākehā Tūturu, should shed some tears when we read, if only we did read, the historical account. Some of us do, but most people don't. Most people in your rohi have no idea of the significance of this day in my culture, and that saddens me, that we have not shed tears yet in order to be able to move on and create a decent relationship with the mana whenua. In our ignorance, we do not weep. And I think weeping's a good thing, because I think it's part of healing. But if we don't weep because we don't understand, we hold on to our idea that our dominance is normal. There's nothing normal about colonisation. It's just a hell of a lot of work to fix it up, which, as you know, as you work on it. Mr Speaker, the settlement's about many things. It's matariki, time to reflect. And this settlement's a great one to reflect on. It's something we often say in this whare, that it's a deal rather than a full and final. The Green Party rejects full and final. Te treaty is living relationship. It goes on. Mai rāno katoa, keep talking, keep dialogue, no end. No tick the box, we've done it. Then that is not to undermine the fantastic achievement, but to say it's just part of an ongoing and permanent dialogue on the nature of justice under the articles of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. We say it's a deal negotiated in the flawed context of Crown-controlled and defined process. And it's about many things: status, quantum, cultural and statutory overlies. My favourite one is RFR, and I was like, what is RFR when I first started doing this mahi? Right of first refusal. I find that fascinating. So they stole your car, and then you get to compete over, or you get to make an offer on the hubcap. RFR. You know, that to me is kind of interesting, but not my idea of justice. However, the next time I get in my car, I'll think about the hubcap, because RFR is a big part of many settlements. It's a big part of this settlement. And it's better than not having it, but It's not my idea of what a thief should do who pinched your car. However, to carry on, I just want to acknowledge that if this is the tangata whenua moment of justice, it's got to be about whenua. And whenua in this settlement, there are places that are being acknowledged and returned. The Upper Mohaka Domain, Taruwera Hot Springs, the core of the rohe, including pre-colonial kāinga and wahitapu. Those are so important. There may not be enough, because it's the hubcap, not the rohe. But that 1 hectare at Waipuna Falls, you can call it a scenic reserve. They call it a scenic reserve. But it's the spiritual significance of that wai that really matters. That becoming back under the authority of those who are deeply intrinsically both kaitiaki and connected in a way that I don't even understand. Because I left my family, we left the water in Ireland and we haven't got back to it yet. I don't know if they want us back either. However, understandable, colonisation makes a mess everywhere on the planet. However, it's really important that these sacred places are returned, at the very least to recognise the nature of those sacred places. And I want to acknowledge, as my colleague Reno Tirakatini talked about, the memorial on Wharikauri and the tribute to the whakarau, 36 of whom were members of Ngāti Hineuru. And as Reno said, we can barely imagine that journey and those feelings that were invoked. We can barely imagine it. I myself had the privilege of standing where the riflemen landed in Turanga, standing on the beach at Whareongonga with the Ngāi Tamanuhiri people. And we stood there one day and I had that picture in my mind, but I did not know your name. Now I know your name. And that's really important. We all need to know the names of the people who were taken to Wharikauri, some whose wairua is still there, as your story recounts. It's so important that we do not just blur history by not knowing who was there. Why were they removed from their homeland? Why was this injustice perpetuated? And as Reno says, we all look forward to the movie of the return. But there is a lot of loss and a lot of pain that goes with what happened to the whakarau. And we need to acknowledge that. And this is, again, where is my culture? How many people in the rohe can tell you, if they're Pākehā, about the whakarau? It's gross ignorance, and we'll never sort the treaty till we educate our people. It's never too late to hear it, and it's extremely humbling to hear it. Just a week ago, I walked with Andrew Judd, the Mayor of New Plymouth, to Parihaka on the other side of the Motu, and there were 500 of us Pākehās walking, which is better than nothing, and I suspect when I was young there would have been like 10 of us, so that's an improvement. But what concerns me is, when I asked the Minister last week in the Select Committee whether she would make sure that the land wars kōrero was taught in schools, she said, it's a choice, the schools can choose whether to do it. And then when I pushed her, she said, the kids can choose. He aha. The children who do not know the history can choose whether to learn the history, especially the children for whom their dominance and privilege is protected by not knowing the history. Not good enough. Not good enough for Ngāti Hineuri. Everybody needs to know the history, especially in your rohe, the children of that rohe, the next generation who should be supporting the settlement and the rangatiratanga of your people. Those people need to understand the history, and this place needs to commit to teaching what happened in those land wars. What happened? Because you can't make peace till you sort out the truth and reconciliation of these issues. So it disappoints me when I get a minister saying that to me in 2016, when in the next breath, we're in this house trying to make a settlement based on te tiriti o Waitangi. But we're not going to tell anybody about it except those who are in the know and those who've suffered and fought their way back to this moment. That's not good enough for this country, let alone for the people who live with the consequences of Pākehā ignorance. And there are consequences. I don't have to tell these people about those consequences. They're not historical consequences. They're current experiences of our tamariki, our mokopuna, that's not good enough at all. So the truth of history and land must be taught and articulated. Which of the rest of us will walk beside you, Ngāti Hineuri, in the support for your future? You deserve all of us to be there. But in the meantime, Congratulations. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. We wish you every opportunity for complete restoration of your tino rangatiratanga. Kia ora koutou katoa.
Peter Paraone.